Sup guys, today we're going to review the M3, the F80 M3. I know this is going to be replaced pretty soon. Not pretty soon, but it's going to be replaced since the new 3 series has been released. I've always been a big fan of the M series, especially the M3 and M4. It's always been a dream car for me of one day actually owning one. And although I haven't owned one yet, I do have a lot of experience driving it on the track and also, driving it pretty hard by doing drifts and everything else. So I could talk about a lot of the driving dynamics. But first, let's look at the exterior. If you could see the car, I'm sure many of you guys have seen it in person. The car has actually grown a lot in size. I actually think the later, more modern M3s are too big. And when you ride inside of it, you could kind of tell. It does feel, yes, the suspension's firm and, everything's all sported out, but the car does feel really big. I really do think the perfect size M3 and M4 was the E46, and that's the perfect size. And although it is smaller than this model, it was actually, even the legroom in the back is still, still good. So the model we're looking at that they had on display, they didn't turn it on for some reason. They had on display was the M3 CS or M4 CS. And what the CS is, just the Club Sport package. It's above the competition package, but below the crazy GTS stuff, like the M3 CSL line, that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool, but I think a lot of it is just kind of gimmicky, with the door handles being the tether rope kind, right? Which looks like they're kind of following Porsche. I really wonder how much weight they saved on this. Probably very trivial amount. They also removed the air conditioner. Actually, no, they have an air conditioner, but it's not automatic, right? Again, how much did you really save? They're charging you more money for less stuff, right? I mean, the car probably weighs maybe like, I don't know, 20 pounds less, right? What's 20 pounds? Everybody, somebody, you could have a dog that weighs 20 pounds in there, right? While you're driving. Anyways, I know it's supposed to be track focus. I know. I'm just saying. For a regular person, this is maybe not suitable actually. The car has massively bolstered seats. I actually think these seats are different from the normal M3s that I've driven, M3s and M4s, right? The bolstering seems a little bit bigger. Also, this car, I think it's standard option to have the Alcantara steering wheel. And while Alcantara does feel nice when you first grab it and when it's brand new, it does not wear very well, right? I've been in cars that had like 5,000 miles on it with Alcantara steering wheels, like Porsches, and they look horrible. It looks like the steering wheel is like 100,000 miles old, right? So I know a lot of people, maybe they'll probably swap this out with the leather steering wheel. And the steering wheel, I really like M3 steering wheels, right? The steering wheel handles really thick, and it's 3-spoke, and it's very, the spokes are very thin. I think it's the perfect steering wheel for driving. It just feels very, you know what you're grabbing. BMWs are not known for their interiors, right? If you look at their interiors, even the modern day cars, even if you look at the new M3s, even if you look at the new BMW M5s, which are supposed to be the most modern, and the new 3 Series, it didn't change much, right? It just looks a little bit more tweaked. Most people say that the interiors of the BMWs are really ugly, but for me, I personally like it this way. It's very simple. It's not busy. But many people think that it should be way more digitized and, have all this crazy stuff. Look at the Sonata. But you know what? I prefer this. I think it's good. This car was also fitted with the carbon ceramic brakes, which I'm told is like a $10,000 option over here, which is just insanity, right? You really want to replace $10,000 brakes? I guess you can. BMWs don't have the best braking performance. When I drove this, it felt the braking. I don't know. I thought it was subpar. Right, I thought it was subpar. Because when you drive this on the track, they make you do emergency braking testing, and the fade. I don't think there's a fade, but it didn't feel all that great. But all in all, I think it's a great car. It's a great GT car. in my opinion, since it's so much bigger and has a lot of features, but it is extremely capable on the track. I've driven this on the circuit quite a lot. I probably spent maybe like 4 or 5 hours on the circuit with this car, and I've also gotten driving lessons on this car, as in like defensive driving techniques and etc. I've also spent probably like 8 hours doing learning how to drift in this car. So I think I could say more than maybe even the average person who has bought an M3 how this car feels even at its limits. The car is extremely capable and it's also very pliant. Um, Surprisingly, it's very easy to control. Right, I had it in all the varied settings with the extremely sharp throttle response and the steering wheel being really uh, with the steering wheel response on its fastest settings and etc. The car the car is really eager to go and it's really willing to please you when you have it in the sports settings, but when you have it in the eco mode, the most basic mode, it just seems kind of like very dull. It shifts really fast to the higher gears, so it tries to save gas and all that. But when you turn on the sports buttons, the M buttons that they have on there, it is a different animal, right? If you put on the sports plus setting, this car is kind of manic. I actually think the pedal response is way too fast, right? So when I was learning how to drift and all that, I actually put it in the lower level because it seemed like I didn't have enough control with the sports plus setting on. I think that's just mainly used for tracking. With the variable suspension, the bumps on the roads are not all that bad. I actually think the ride quality with the adaptive suspension is very soft. It's not jarring, as opposed to like other sports cars. Like if you go inside a Porsche, well, not the newer ones, but if you go inside like a 997 Porsche, with the sports suspension on, it is very rough, right? It wouldn't be a fun car to be in for long trips. But for the M3, I think this car really can do everything. It really can do everything. The only downside is that it's just a little bit big, especially for me. I think the car is big because it's not as nimble. And I know this car is supposed to be producing like 420 horsepower or something like that, but I actually think it's way more, right? This car is so quick on the track. It goes from being very docile to a track monster right away, right? The adaptability of this car, I think, is amazing. So is it worth the money? I actually think M3s and M4s have gotten so expensive lately. Um, I'm not sure if it's worth it. But the problem is, I don't think there's anything else that really competes in this range at this price level. So it becomes like a default choice, unless you're, trying to step into maybe like the Cayman or the Boxster. But even that, those, I don't think they're the right comparison. They're just different animals. And Audi has been really kind of, not all that great lately. So your real competition has to be something with the Mercedes. I think the performance of the M3s and M4s are more sports oriented, and because of that, I think by default BMW is a great deal because you really don't have any other choice.